I'll hit this.
All right, nice.
What do you need?
Just the right arrow.
Okay.
Warm in here, man. All the bodies are heating this place up. Forget it being cool out there. I'm from South Florida originally. Moved out here about 8 years ago, and I'm still trying to enjoy that cold La Jolla water.
I know, right?
I gave up all the training stuff. I was swimming out there with some guys in the mornings, and they said, "How come we don't see anymore?" I just can't do it. And I'm like, I felt like Kirk. I was like, "Must swim." It's really tough. So anyway, I think it's really comfortable, nice and warm in here. So Nathan, good to see you. All right. So is everybody good to go? Are we set?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. All right. So I'd like to just quickly introduce myself. My name is Jeff DeBrose, and I'm the founder of NXT Robotics. I'll talk about the company in a little bit and share what we do, why we do, and who we do it for. But I'd also like to introduce Jody Shannon, who's our creative director. And there's a very interesting reason why we have a creative director. And as we get into products and about the company, I'll talk about that too. Because we're a little bit different. I mean, I've approached a lot of things in my life from a technology standpoint. And now we're trying to do something of a little bit of a hybrid, and it's working. So we're getting creative. We're taking that sci-fi element, different look to things, and we're applying it to robotic solutions. It's been a lot of fun. It's been a pretty interesting path. I left my full-time job in August, and in August of 2014, and 3 months later, we had this fully running prototype, Iris, which I will talk about later as well. One thing I will say as our preamble for the evening, just 3:30 Monday morning, and a lot of us understand those hours, I switched over from an Intel platform to a Snapdragon platform. So I haven't enabled the automation functions, sensors, speaking, and all that. So I'm remotely driving her, but everything else inside is working as it should. The port took all of about 3.5 hours. It was really, really smooth. So I'm sold on Snapdragon. So if there are any Qualcomm people here, I'm just thrilled. So can we go to the next slide? So this is really about us. When I looked for a team, I looked for people who could actually deliver, who have histories of being able to build product, build companies, exit out of other companies. And it's not the easiest thing because you also want a good blend of personality. So sometimes you have high overachievers that can really deliver, and they've done great historically, but they're kind of difficult to work with. We had that conversation when we were driving down. So you end up having to make some pretty tough decisions, but we all have to work really well because we work really, really hard. We work a lot of hours. One of the core pieces that sometimes people ask about before they know like what we do is our 40 plus years. I have 2 people on our advisory board that each have over 20 years in the hospitality industry, and it helps us out a lot because they keep us from these missteps. My background is in software engineering, but also in cybersecurity. I've run labs for ESET Antivirus, for WebSense, for other security companies from Silicon Valley down to San Diego, and it's been an amazing journey. But one of the things like for instance, one of the pitch events when I was talking about the company and our solutions, I talk about how we build the system from the ground up. So it's a bottoms-up development methodology, and we really start with security. So our kernel is hardened, and we secure everything with digital certificates, and it's not just a simple entry into the robot. And there's a big reason why is because when you're putting it into the hospitality industry, it gets to know customers. And the last thing we want, because we deal with it every day with the breaches that occur, is for someone to bring in a physical 3D kinetic platform and now create a new entry or a new way for folks to get into a system. They're going to figure something out. They're always trying. And these are all the other parts of our team. And we really like hospitality. It's been an area that I've been wanting to service for a really long time. And as everyone knows, the price of components have gone down. We have additive manufacturing or 3D printing, which allows us to build on demand. And when we talk to investors, they love that because we don't have to print, or we don't have to build 500 irises and put them in a warehouse. We print on demand. And that's kind of really slick. But then when they see the size of iris, they go, "Wow, that's kind of big." how do you print something that large? And later on, when we do all the dog and pony touchy-feely, I'll open up the panels and you'll see how exactly we put the parts together, and it helps us just build a larger robot. Can we go to the next one? So these are all the things we do. I won't get into it individually, but one thing I wanted to point out, because I'm a real big advocate for open source, is, for instance, we're using Pocket Sphinx for our speech recognition and keyword detection. So when you say Iris, do something for me, Iris will do it, but we're using Pocket Sphinx, and it's a wonderful project. But one of the things I did do is I rewrote a good chunk of it so that it's PubSub enabled. So when Iris detects voice, she actually publishes it out. So there are multiple components within the robot that are actually independent. So I could actually have Iris in 4 or 5 locations still operating as one robot, just because it's all publish, subscribe, distributed processing. And we'll get into Iris. So next, please. So this is basically what you'll see on our website when you visit it. We talk about our platform and some things like IoT connectivity, and that's a big deal for a lot of people because more and more things are connected. We talk to different hotels, and they have all sorts of parts of the hotel rooms that are connected, and they can, between temperature, being in the room and out of the room. And some people don't like that, but the more parts that we have that are connected, the more people are going to be able to determine the things that you do, and it's just a byproduct of the modern day world that we live in. So yeah, we also talk a lot about augmenting workforces. So the reason we target the hospitality industry is because globally it's a $457 billion business, and the hospitality industry has been swinging up the last few years, and that's great. In the United States, it's about a $150 billion business, and the challenge we're experiencing domestically in particular is that the national unemployment rate's about, I think, about 5.7%. The unemployment rate in the hospitality industry is anywhere between 9.4 and 10%. So there's a gap there, and there's a shortfall. And so they're looking for more people, but the salaries increase at about a 1% rate per year. That's an industry that people actually don't want to go into. They'll do it, and then the turnover rate is pretty high. So I think last year domestically it was like around 800,000 people that were either terminated or decided to leave the hospitality industry. So they're constantly churning, trying to get more people. Now the hard thing is the hospitality industry wants consistent service so they can get repeat dollars. And so the problem they're experiencing is you have new people all the time. And people aren't looking at it as a long-term career. So it's an area that we attacked, and we're getting traction, and so we're pretty happy about that. Next, please. These are a couple of screenshots of different configurations. So as you see here, you can actually remove the head. I don't want to do it now because it fits in there really snug, and I'll be sitting there struggling while presenting. But by doing that, it allows a customer to have one robot with 3 different configurations. So we can actually have a high table that mounts up high, and we haven't printed them yet, and I'll sure why. And then we have the low table that can actually carry more weight because your center of gravity is lower. So you can put up to 60 pounds on the low table, and we're calculating and recommending about 22 to 25 pounds on the high table. And that's actually not bad. When you're holding 25 pounds and walking around, you realize it's actually quite a bit of stuff, whether that be food, dry cleaning, or other items that you're moving around in a hotel. And the benefit is too, obviously, I mean, they're running 18 hours a day, and you just dispatch them from the front desk. So they're running around the place all day. You have these little automatons just going, scattering and skittering throughout the property. Next, please. So I just wanted to share with you guys, and this I'm sure a lot of people want to always know, like, so where did it start, right? And there were some other pictures I was looking for, but I mean, these are like our sketches. We sit down, we got this great team of really smart people, and we sit there and we go, okay, so here's the base that we're going to start with. We like it because it's round, and when you rotate, you don't take up any more space. It's an 18-inch diameter base, so when you rotate in place, you're still in that 18-inch space. We're not sticking out lopsided on one end, and that helps us know that no matter where that robot is, if you turn around, you don't have to try to sense or estimate where an overhanging part is. It just makes it easier. We have some really hard problems to solve, so we figured we wouldn't give ourselves new problems. In this case, we're also looking at an articulating head. One of the challenges, and does everyone know what the term uncanny valley is? What it means? Yes? Or just show of hands for who knows. Okay, small number. So basically, we have robots that look like robots that you expect them to appear as, and then there are people that are trying to make robots look like people. And until they get to like where Cylons, you can't tell if they're human or not the chrome domes, right? But the actual ones that look like flesh people like us. between that is a really weird space. You know, you see some guys that are making robots that look like themselves, and I think that's pretty weird. So they look weird. I'm like, why would I want to make a robot that looks like me? I have some starlets that I think I'd like them to look like, but I don't want them looking like me. I just think it's weird if you look at myself. So anyway, that's the uncanny valley, and we are, you know, we have guys like Jody who come up with some brilliant ideas on how it should look and what's socially acceptable. There's a lot of psychology in robots, so if folks haven't been exposed to that, I think that's a great takeaway. Is people can't tell what robots are thinking, and when you can't tell what someone's thinking that you're in a room with, you become uncomfortable. If they're sitting there and they're just kind of like cycloptic, one-eyed stare, the Gorgon stare, right? And you don't know what's going on, and they're not speaking, they're not fidgeting, they're just sitting there, and people start getting uncomfortable. So we were looking at things like an articulating head. It hears a sound from the left or right, or in front, and then it will just turn and address the person, which people are, the response is they like it. They want the robot to not just turn its body, but actually to turn its head and address them. So we have that feedback. It's really, really important too, because the last thing we want, now we've gone through some iterations, is putting a product out there or building a robot for an academic environment even, and it's rolling through the hallways or whatever, or on the campus, and people are just like, this thing is freaking me out. You'll see a picture when we first brought Iris out. It just so happened I had a really high gain microphone in here, and it had a built-in bright red LED, and I thought, hey, I'll kill two birds with one stone. I have a power LED that gives me some status indicator, and I'll leverage that high gain microphone. And we took it to a pitch event, and people were looking at it like, oh my God, it's red. Is it going to do something? I'm being more techie about it, like, no, it's a power indicator. And they're like, no, it's red. That's a problem. Okay. So very quickly just got rid of the red and went right to blue. Next. And so these are the early days. Continued. After we, this is Martin Cole, and he's our VP of Operations, and he does all the SolidWorks design, breaks apart the big stuff. Anything that I dream of, he has to make it happen in 3D in the system. So we ended up getting our first set of parts. These are the actual parts here for the prototype, and it was a lot of fun. Every bit of the design actually fit well. There was no going back, shaving parts off, using Dremel tools or anything. And that, I take zero credit for that. This guy's awesome at what he does. And that was a very fun day because we had everything working, we just didn't have a nice cover for it. So next, please. And so I just wanted to share like some of the things that we've been involved in. It's Mayor San Diego, getting an introduction to Iris. This is our senior software engineer, Ray. He's out of Phoenix, but in the distributed world, he writes code. He's out there. He's got some hardware with him and some software. Here's that little tiny red eye that everybody loved so much, and I figured I'd do a little robo selfie with it, but other people were just kind of freaked out. But we've been having a really, really good time with this. So I also have some video demos if you guys want to catch some of that stuff as well. Right when I wrap up with this, I think this is the last one. Can you hit the next one, please? Yeah. So it's really easy if you want to get in touch with us. If you can't remember our names, you can always hit us at info@nxtrobotics.com. No, this is not Lego NXT. So I know people ask that, so I was like, oh man, is that what's the deal with that? I'm like, no, I just needed something that was advanced, like the next level. And I mean, if Lego tells us not to use this because we're on the radar, and that's kind of a good thing, I think. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, info@nxtrobotics.com will get that email out to us as well. So at this point, are there any questions? I also have some video demos that I'd like to share, but I'd definitely be open to questions. Wow.
So what is it exactly doing in the hospitality?
So this is the social configuration. So this one is the concierge mode. You go in, hey, what's the nearest 4-star Italian restaurant? The nearest 4-star Italian restaurant is boom, boom, boom. It'll give you the information that you're looking for. Or I can't find my room. I am so lost. This thing's saying, room 2408. I don't know where that is. That 24th floor, 2nd floor. I don't know. It's like, well, follow me if you'd like. I can escort you to your room, and it'll take you to your room. So the social one is really primarily around just being a social interaction robot. And then when you put the high and low table adapters, they're delivery. So they could be delivery for staff to move things between parts of the campus or campuses, or deliver and pick up from the guest suites. Now, one of the newer opportunities that we're entertaining is customers who have a certain size hotel room. They actually get I hate the term because somebody threw it out there, but a robo butler. So you're in your really large suite that's like 4 times this size, and then you have a robot in there it's an optional thing, and then some folks said, oh, that'd be kind of cool. We'll see what the response is like.
Question. So I asked for the restaurant. Does it text me? Does it email me? How do I get there? Or did it just tell me and I have to remember?
Yeah. So right now it's telling you, but we have entertained getting your information because every guest checks in. There's information on the guest. So one of the optional things could be, and it's up to the hotel property if they'd like that information relayed to the robot. So much of this is really unfortunate. I mean, I'm not really a control freak, but I like to say, here are the things that we can do, but the hotels are very strict about, we don't want to do this for our customers, or we don't want this thing interacting with our customers, or this kind of data on here, and that's really it. It's their rules, it's their property, and it's their customers' information, and being in information security, I mean, I completely get it. So we're just going by everything they request or say that they don't want.
So does it have a means of recognizing individual customers?
Yeah, so we've added OpenCV as the method or the underlying subsystem for facial recognition. And so far, it works well. But again, some people are, when I sit down and talk business, they just go, oh, I don't know, because we're going through this really interesting transition right now. People are saying, the overlords and Skynet and all sorts of stuff, and all of my job is going to go. But when I talk to them about this shortfall in labor, then people go, oh, really? I didn't know that. And so they think that we're going to grab a bunch of people in hospitality and say, no, get out of here because it's cheaper to not have all those benefits and salary, but that's not the case. This is supposed to augment that step. And we're not going to fill the shortfall. We're talking about a lot of people that are not filling seats. If we sold one robot for every single one of those seats, our market cap would be ridiculous.
How do you quell the fears of, like you say, security? I mean, short of putting a bag over its head.
Yeah.
Do we know that it's recording and going up somewhere?
Yeah.
And security issues and confidentiality.
So that's an awesome question because it always comes down to like policy and like a notification statement. And we do have those discussions with people like, so do you want to say that the robot, there are robots on premise, or do you feel like people are going to just, they're going to walk around and go, oh, okay, this is cool, or do you want to make like a big statement like there are robots, autonomous navigating robots on this premise. If you do not want to be seen, or something like that, right? We're trying to account for all of the different cases, and it's actually kind of hard because every one person you meet with
is a different.
Yeah,
fear,
like 19 of their 20 things, I'm like, okay, yeah, I got it. Then there's a 20th one, and I go, oh, okay, let me see how we can help you with that. A lot of times it's really in security too, and I find a lot of parallels. A lot of times it's policy. So some hotels just say, there's one major hotel chain, and they just said, absolutely not, no way, never. It's one guy because I see his bias, and it's really coming from him, and I'm like, okay, how much longer is he going to be there? Because when he's not there anymore, I'll come back and revisit you guys. Yes.
So here's an interesting question. So if each client or guest card key has an RFID chip, you can ask when they come in and check in whether or not they mind, and it won't recognize people who have an RFID chip that says, don't record my image.
Yeah, so, RFID, have you worked with RFID?
A little bit.
Yeah, so RFID has, there's active and passive.
Mm-hmm.
So the active one, you can read from a distance, but, for somebody who's carrying around an active RFID, it's a chunk, right? So,
I know
yes.
Walmart uses it. They're the ones who are pushing it. So I looked into it.
They are. They push their
all
vendors,
their
they push
vendors.
everybody. But yeah, I was really heavily developing in RFID years ago, and there are some positives, but there are a lot of shortfalls. Okay. And I'm really glad I didn't bank on it and build a company around it. It just ended up with a tremendous number of challenges, and the new technology is just it off. Matter of fact, I actually forgot to bring a few devices with me because you reminded me of this. I have some little really slick discs. They're white with little silver bands around them, and they're Bluetooth Low Energy discs. And you can basically just toss them around the room, and Iris can locate them. If you tell Iris which one is where and you tag it, it's a real easy way to navigate around without using things like LiDAR or trying to do like a vision navigation. It's dirt cheap and it works really well. Some people argue against it, but 25 years ago I worked with a company that basically did triangulation and triliteration using cell sites only, no GPS, and we were 2.5, 3 meters accurate, and that's basically good GPS. Except we were doing it in GPS denied areas, so I know it works really well if you have decent algorithms. You can compensate every once in a while. And the reason why that's important is because some people have been asking us to release a consumer version, and it's hard because, for instance, and I brought this in case I bring stuff just in case folks don't get exposed to quite a few of these things. But for instance, like this is one of our LiDAR units, and this is small, but I mean they're $1,200. When I go through a distributor, I get them for like $900, but that's what it brings the price up by. So there's no way I can actually put one of these in a consumer location, knowing that I've put a $1,000 piece in there. So we have been looking at these, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with these. They're called LiDAR Lite, and this is $73. This is This is a 40 meter range LiDAR. Now, of course, it's not spinning. You just mount it on something, but you can mount it on a turntable with circular continuous contacts, and you can use this as well. $73 to this guy. Now, the difference obviously is this guy's spinning pretty fast, and this guy spins as fast as you want to spin it, and you're going to get a certain amount of resolution. But these are the decisions that we always have to make. So if anybody's really looking to experiment with LiDAR, I would definitely recommend this. You can get it at Robot Shop. I'm trying to think of the other vendors, but just search for LiDAR Lite and then search on shopping under LiDAR Lite, and you'll see this. I mean, I'm not a part of the company, but I am just absolutely amazed. This is a really slick device. It works incredibly well, and it's tough because there are no moving parts. Right? And that's something that I've learned in my life. I mean, I've worked for a lot of companies, and every time we added a fan because of heat, our mean time between failure dropped to, well, not through the floor, but it dropped orders of magnitude from where it used to be when it was pure silicon. This is just an example of some of the stuff we use that we're trying to actually get rid of. And I think you guys also had BrainPort here a little while ago. So inside of Iris, that's the Snapdragon we moved to. So we're using BrainPort's vStem. We partnered with them, I think, back in October or November, and we decided to use their vStem board because the developer version is $500, and you get all sorts of sensors. I don't think that's me. He's a highly sought after guy. So we switched over to the vStem because it has a lot of components built into the vStem. For instance, you get an IMU built into the vStem. You get a bunch of GPIOs. You get servo control. I'll get that. You get the camera interfaces, and that's done in hardware. So now you're talking about doing some visual type work without the added overhead of doing it in software. So it's a huge plus for us. But we partnered with them in October, but now we're finally just starting to take advantage of their product. They gave us an iRover. I'm sure you guys have seen the iRover demoed in here, and they gave us one for a couple months, and I think we ran those wheels down just by a little bit. We had it everywhere, but we really evaluated it. The only challenge is that they're hanging on to their BrainOS package pretty strongly. They're not releasing that out to partners yet. I guess there's a certain level of partner that might have it, but we don't have it. They absolutely refuse to let go of BrainOS. And we really want that because then Iris's learning capabilities would be enhanced significantly. And today, one of the things we do with Iris is we have a graph-based knowledge system. So the things that Iris learns, Iris builds connections between. So instead of trying to leverage software and AI to determine something, we just go along the relationships and traverse craft system, and it gets us answers very, very fast, and it's low. It hits the system at a low rate.
A couple questions. So,
Sure.
what happens if Iris gets tipped over or,
Yeah.
or pushed down? Is it going to send a signal to the front
Doesn't.
desk?
Yeah, it does two things. So there's an audible, shrieking, nasty alarm that nobody likes, and then there's the notification to the front desk. Because the last thing that a hotel property wants is for someone to just go down there and they're getting ready to go out and they're like, oh, by the way, you got a robot laying down on the 7th floor.
Well, I thought about like Walt Disney World, and get a bunch of kids,
Yeah.
push them over. Or
Yeah.
something like that. What about like?
Well, if we were in Walt Disney World, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
We do anything they want.
Yeah. What about like say it's delivering like a bottle of champagne or something really expensive, to a room, and somebody swipes it on the way over?
Yeah.
Is it gonna have like I know the hotel cameras might be able to catch it, but someone's gonna it's gonna show up. Is it gonna know when it hasn't reached its delivery with its payload? I guess essentially. Or?
So some of the casinos, they have a lot of hotel properties, and I was talking to one of them in Oklahoma, and a director brought up that exact scenario, and he said the only way you're going to do that here, he said, so we won't deliver alcohol on these. He said until you guys have like an enclosed section, and then you basically just swipe your room key. I know where it's going. The only thing that can open it up is somebody who's got a room key, like your room key, and so that's their solution, which of course is a little bit of an engineering and added cost to us, but it's a pretty large opportunity. So we're talking to them now about that. But the catch is we're trying to stay focused and deliver the things that we're committed to. But everybody, and it's part of product management. You really have to kind of manage all of the requirements or requests, and then you just put it into a backlog.
So is the
Give
main
them a
idea like the desk is going to deploy it from a computer system based on the need? Or,
Yep.
So, but there's also going to be systems like this that are going to be on floors that are able to be autonomous, like they'll handle certain things like you're describing.
Right.
Like that.
So one of the scenarios was like when there's a conference. A lot of times, like I know me, I work on navigation systems, and then I go inside of like the Venetian, and I'm like, I don't know where I am. I'm lost. Right? That's one of the use cases that one of the hotels said. Yeah, we just like these to be kiosks, and they're asking, okay, would we be opposed to putting a monitor on there? And I said, oh, I'm not opposed to anything you want to do. You pay for it. You're good. And they have enough power to power a monitor for some amount of time, but then some monitors are more efficient than others, so that changes a few of the requirements. Yes, back.
How does it open elevator doors?
So we haven't done the elevator door thing yet, but there is a secure Wi-Fi method of calling an elevator and then directing it to your floor. So we just haven't integrated with that yet. I'm pretty excited to discover that actually, or to sit down and work with that.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm sorry.
So I mean, any property that would utilize these,
Yeah.
everyone has elevators, so
Yeah.
they would have to retrofit their elevators.
Some of the older properties probably. I don't know which ones do and which ones don't. We were talking to a hospital actually, and the hospital was like, "Oh yeah, we can have these things," because they have another robotic platform in that hospital, and they said, "Yeah, these call via Wi-Fi." You should have seen that huge sigh I had because I didn't know how to solve that problem, and I was like, "Buy one for every floor, or buy 10 for every floor." I don't know. That's a good answer. And they said, "Oh no, we call them up via Wi-Fi." So yeah. That made me sad because that reduced the selling amount by some order of magnitude. Yes.
I'm sorry, we just got here. I was wondering if you could give us a brief explanation of
Sure.
what the robot does.
So this is a hospitality service robot that comes in 3 configurations. First of all, it's 3D printed, fully autonomous. Excuse me. And this is what we call the social configuration. So folks walk up to it. You can ask a question. They'll answer you back. Think of kind of like a concierge in a hotel. But if you take the head off, and you can see the separation line here. If you take the head off and put a high table on it, it just starts. You can use it to deliver and pick up. And then there's another separation here where you put a lower table, and same thing. You can dispatch it to go pick up and deliver. But with the lower table, it's lower to the ground. You can put more weight on there. So that's really it. And in the industry, the problem we're solving is a labor shortage in the hospitality industry. So and it's fairly substantial, and it doesn't seem to be getting much better. So when we presented this at various pitch events, different investors, there was a lot of interest in it, and it's fully 3D printed.
So
Yes.
how does somebody know what to expect from it if they come to the hotel for the first time?
Yeah.
I mean, and they don't know what to expect. I mean, there could be an emergency, and they could say, "Call emergency," and,
Right,
and it's just
right,
sitting there
right.
staring
Yeah.
blankly at them with
Yeah.
the light. You know.
So that's something we're dealing with now. So our first trial starts at the end of this month. Our first real trial, not hey, what do you think about this? And let's have all these discussions. We've had a lot of discussions with a lot of people, but we finally have a hotel that is saying yes, bring it on property. We'll work with one, and that's great because we're in the process of making more. But they're going to actually help us out with that whole human interaction. Like, oh, people didn't like this, or people walk up to it and say, my bags are lost. Get my bags over here. I flew United, flight 5424, right? And it's like, it's just sitting there like, sorry, I can't help you with that, right? It's like, oh man. So yeah, setting that expectation, like here are the things you can do with your automated concierge, or with when you call for something, expect that it may be delivered by one of these platforms. Are you okay with that? I don't know if they want to go down that route. Hotels are very, very sensitive about anything that touches a customer. I've learned that. I thought it was just kind of like business as usual, and every little thing was like, wait, you're gonna do what? It's gonna deliver this. How fast is it going to deliver it, or what's it going to look like? So we had to keep working on the look so that it's the least intimidating appearance possible. And we get a lot more acceptance from the ones that are tabletop versions than this one, because people look at it and go, there's this, again, that Gorgon stare. So what's going on? So I have some UX and UI folks who are telling me, hey, make it look like Eve from Wall-E. The whole Eva thing, right? So have two horizontal blue lines, and they can, tilt, look differently, especially with an articulating head. It would really start to express something, and it would have more acceptance. So we take all that back in, and then we have to figure out, okay, so where and when do we do that? And by the way, something that's not announced yet, but we've worked our way through it, is our partnership with MakerBot. They're actually producing all of our bodies going forward. So we're not going to be doing this anymore. Thank God. It's not something I enjoy doing. I think 3D printing is great. It's cool, but I've got a ton of work. I write a lot of code. I travel. There's a lot going on, and then to have to go back and deal with 3D printing and like, oh, this piece is going to take this long. What do you think? It's like, I really don't want to have to answer those questions. As Jody knows, this is something that really kind of puts the break in the middle of my day. So we met with MakerBot at CES. We agreed to meet at CES, and we had a really long sit down because they have these really big printers called Z18s. And when I met with them, I was like, "Do you have something bigger than a Z18?" And they're like, "Whoa, why?" And I said, "This is what we want." So a Z18 can actually print the head in one piece. I mean, it's capable of doing that, and it can even print this piece because of the size of its table or its platter. But we have problems with these curves. Because of the way you do this whole additive printing, and you've got pieces hanging over, and we've got lips inside, and it's just kind of a real problematic issue for us to try to do a certain way. But their guys are great. They have actually one of their engineers that has designed robots for the Discovery Channel, and she's on our team, and it's great. She calls us up, and she gives us all this feedback, shoots us over some files, we fire them up in SolidWorks, look at what our changes are, and we're like really happy with everything that these guys have done. They're solid. So if you ever have an opportunity to work with MakerBot in a commercial capacity, those guys are phenomenal. And part of their charge, or what we pay for, is for them to consult back to us. So it's not that we pay a certain amount and they're going to spit out a prototype or two, because that'd be really expensive, but because they give us some really sharp people that are incredibly experienced. So it's been an amazing journey to get from there to here. So I also want to make sure that I get time to show you guys a couple more demos with Iris. Yes?
How do you charge them up?
The final product, we're looking at a couple of vendors for a inductive charging mat, a fairly large one. But today we just have basically just a plug in the bottom. Just plug it in, and the power switches are on the bottom too. I used to have the power switches on the inside because for the longest it was this prototype that didn't have a body, and it was easy to just turn them on and off. Then we put the body on, and I was always having to pull panels off at not trade shows, but like at demos and everything. and that got a little bit old. As you can tell, it's been handled a lot. So, but she's still kind of tough. So it works for us. And by the way, this is printed in ABS plastic, in case anybody's wondering. Yes. So,
how do you know it's actually low in electricity?
You get feedback, so you can ask her, and then she'll tell you what her status is, and she'll give you like the whole rundown. We also have our remote software, and you see the voltages across, and if it's going yellow and red, it's not good. Time for a charge. We actually are pretty conservative. We don't want the batteries getting too low because it damages the batteries. So we want to always keep the batteries at a certain rate. So when a customer sees that it's yellow or red, it's actually kind of like at the tail end or at the middle of yellow and tail end of yellow. Whereas the customer is thinking, oh, it's almost dead. I don't trust customers to actually look at it and go, oh, I think it's got X amount of charge. No, they're going to end up with a robot that's stuck somewhere, and they're going to call me and say, hey, this thing stopped moving. So you kind of learn over time to monitor that stuff and then adjust. Kind of like adjusting for bias, right? And so I adjusted a little bit. It keeps us safe. Okay, questions over here? Oh yes.
I was wondering if you had ever considered mixing up the colors on that a little bit, like maybe following a little bit of Apple's design to mix maybe some chrome colors onto that. Like, had you ever considered anything like that?
We have. So this isn't the final design. This is really, really stark white, and so this is raw, right? You see all the striations. They're actually going to be very glossy, but with that highly glossy exterior, I think we have a problem when it's just pure white. So that's an area where I lean over at Jody, our creative guy there, and it's like, so where do we either put color bands or where do we break it up? We actually have a safety light strip that goes across here and a bumper that isn't on here, but that light strip is actually pretty neat because it really lights up the bottom, and it can't come towards you without you looking and going either like, whoa, that's cool, or okay, I see it, and it's moving along. But it really does bring out the fact that it's coming, or it's just idling in one spot.
How are you getting that finish? Acetone or using
No, not the
ink
acetone
or
stuff.
what?
I'm trying to remember what this product's name is. Our materials guy would tell you if you were here. But you coat it on, and the only thing I don't like about it is very labor intensive. You coat it on, and it fills the striations, whereas the acetone bath is more of a chemical melt, and that would create a few problems for us because right now we have these seams, and I can show you guys here. If I can get my finger in there. So, like you can see how everything's set up here. These are temporarily placed here because we needed bigger batteries for more runtime. But this is the B-stem board, and you'll notice if you actually are familiar with the B-stem board, it's actually turned around. These are the cameras here. But when we start using the cameras, the B-stem is going to be residing in the head, because our end goal is to have visual SLAM. For anyone who's familiar, it's just navigation and mapping, or localization and mapping. But we don't want to do it with these Hakuyos. They're really expensive, and it's another amount of data that we have to process. And we're already looking at things and using OpenCV. Why not use stereoscopic vision and visual SLAM? And that's an area that B-STEM is actually working on it to help us with. So they're going to make it, the solution they're going to come up with is optimal for their board. I think that's going to be more generic because they're on a Snapdragon. But I'm really excited about that. I really, really want to get off of lasers.
So you have two platform versions, right? How are those going to see it? You're going to put...
So what the reason we're at a pause right now with MakerBot is because we're considering a visual strip here where the LiDAR sits, because we're not using visual SLAM yet. But the LiDAR will sit at this height, which is about 22, 23 inches, and we just had to consider things like the average coffee table is about 17 to 18 inches high, so we still get to see above your average coffee table and then do that whole mapping of the room. I mean, it's funny because like I never thought I'd have to be finding out what's the average height of a coffee table. But when we got to this point, it was like, well, if you can see above the coffee table, you can do a good job of mapping. If you can't, you're going to start seeing, a certain depth, and you're not going to know why, because this is a 2D lidar. If we were going to get a 3D lidar, our customers wouldn't like that because we'd have to make up that cost difference. So, and by the way, with Visual Slam, you can get some really great depth on multiple moving objects simultaneously. It's really, really good. What I've seen are academic projects, but they're really promising. I was thrilled. And that was probably a year to 2 years ago. If the BSTEM guys do a good job with it, I'm sold. We'll buy all our boards from them. Yes.
How much did it cost in total?
This costs about somewhere in the area of about $1,200. When you add the LiDAR, it's now $2,400, and that makes us unhappy. So, because, and I was sharing with the group earlier, because a lot of people are asking us, hey, can you make a consumer version? It doesn't necessarily need to be this tall, but we're really interested in it. So, one thing we're happy to announce is that on the 20th, we're going to be starting our crowdfunding campaign. So, Jody he's heading the whole thing up. So we're pretty excited, but there's no way we're going to throw one of these in there, and that's why we're really pushing for Visual Slam. It's just going to change everything for us. It'll change everything for everybody, really, if they want to take advantage of that. Yes.
Is that your vision to use Visual Slam for all the indoor navigation, or would you? Yeah,
indoor and outdoor navigation. It works very well in both environments. Whereas these guys tend to be like, depending on which unit you have, this is like an indoor LiDAR. And if somebody says, hey, we want to use these, they're just going from one campus to another. Yeah, it's capable of rolling down the sidewalk, but then it's slam. I haven't tried these outdoors, so your mileage may vary, right? So that's the challenge with these guys. Yes.
I'm just wondering, with hospitality, you have to be ADA compliant, or the facility is ADA compliant, which makes it easier for this thing to navigate.
Right.
Because you can't have rises over what, an eighth of an inch, something like that.
Mm-hmm. And that's a big issue.
Oh yeah, in a home.
When we've hit certain houses.
Yeah.
Houses
all
are.
bets are off.
Yeah, my home. I mean, you got a sliding door, and my wife's like, "Come on, it can follow me out here." I'm like, "Nah, it can't." And when we didn't have the head fastened as much, one day it just literally popped off, and I was like, "Oh, now look what you did! It's following you around. It's your fault. You killed it." We do have a really good time. Our house has stuff running around all the time, and she wonders, like, is this like some kind of weird crab thing? Well, it actually is, but it's automated. And it has really big batteries, so it's going to chase you for like 12 hours. We have a great time. Love this stuff. More questions? Yes.
When it's like delivering something in a hotel, how do you know if it's actually if it's at the door waiting? Yeah.
So the hotels nowadays, you can actually ring the room remotely. So if you're in the room, you'll hear your doorbell. It's the electronic doorbell. So you hear like ding ding, and then somebody's at your door, and you just open it up. Now, if you don't answer the door, at some point the staff's going to call you and go, your food or your dry cleaning's at your door. It's like, oh, I'm sorry to hear the doorbell. But yeah, you can ring those doorbells electronically.
Can that be seen through the people?
I'm sorry?
Can that be seen through the people?
I don't think the low table adapter can be seen. It's pretty low. But if thank you for that question. So it's one of those, and I haven't been asked that one yet. So I'm going to prepare myself. So I think it comes down to those policy things where it's like, well, if this can't be seen through people, then thank you, because I'm going to bring that up at my next meeting with the hotel and say, hey, if you guys are worried about not being able to see the delivery, can you please, maybe the easiest way to address it is just let the guests know, hey, one of the shorter, smaller robots is bringing over your dry cleaning. It's all folded nicely or whatever.
So if it's a certain distance from the door, it still will be able to see it. So
Yeah,
if you
you can
maintain,
back up. Yeah.
make sure it's
Instead of being like right
at the door.
right?
Yeah, it'll see because of the fisheye. You can see the ground
Yeah.
when you're looking through that on the wall. You can see all the way across.
Yeah, you can see it across. I'm just wondering, like, and it makes sense, right? I mean, because the collision avoidance has a certain range, and we just adjust it all the time. Like, what's comfortable? Like, don't get up in my grill, right? It's like there's this proxemic zone, right? It's like you're really close and I'm uncomfortable. or it's in my social space. So it just depends on where it needs to land. We're still working through a lot of configurations, and we're trying to do like, okay, here's one configuration, works for everybody. Like, doesn't. So now what we've done is we've gone back and we said, okay, all these are variables, right? And so you can go and configure it so that it's proxemic zone because it's going to a hotel that's frequented by, I don't know, guests just don't like people near them, or guests that like, warm and fuzzy even with robots. So don't know. We just try to stay flexible.
If that's okay, let's watch the demo video and maybe we can come back to Q&A.
Yeah, let's do it. That'd be a lot of fun. And I have one other thing that I'll share with everyone as part of our R&D efforts. I'm playing it? Yep. Let's see here. See how it deals with this resolution. So this is a little bit of like for the Internet of Things, IoT connectivity. Let's see if I can find my video now. Find the video. Let's get some audio. Oh, did that die on us? Or?
No, he turned it off.
Oh, there we go.
Is that back on? Hansel, the light, the sound? Just push the button. I did it. It's just the button, right?
Iris.
There it is.
All right, that's a little loud. Let me let me adjust that. Unlock the front door.
Unlocking front door.
Iris, lock the front door.
Locking front door.
So in these, I just use the keyword, obviously Iris, and then it's just followed by a set of commands. This is an example of IoT connectivity, or quite simply using a robot as a connected location hub. Iris, hue lights off.
Turn hue lights off.
Iris, hue lights on.
Turn hue lights on.
So we also have other devices that we connect Iris to, and it works great. And so now you look at the voice interface with a kinetic platform, and then tying it to your connected home, connected location, and things get really, really interesting, especially when it's reading. And there's also like thermostats that I've worked with too. Yes.
Do you have to build the voice module yourself, or are there
I did.
services available that do voice recognition?
So I did the speech recognition using a project called Pocket Sphinx, but there's a pretty heavy amount of modification to the core project. We're actually going to feed that back in. So we're going to fork that with our basically we use a publish subscribe system called MQTT, message queue telemetry transport, and it's not great for wide area networking or sending messages over the internet. But it's really, really good for closed systems. So everything inside of Iris is all message passing, and with very, very low latency. And that's how we send sensor information and all that. And I know somebody would ask, like, well, are you talking about ROS? And it's actually not ROS. And the reason why is because we're using an incredibly small and very efficient system. So our power budget was very, very, very low. Trying to load ROS on that was a bear. I spent a week and a half recompiling, building, blowing things up, trying it again and again, and finally I ended up just writing my own distributed robotic type operating system. So you can think of it as like ROS super light, and it's really easy to move across and port. So when we moved from the x86 platform to the Snapdragon, it was about a 3-hour changeover. Whereas doing that, I know ROS is, it's modular and you're supposed to be able to just install it and then add your components as you wish. But I've worked with ROS for a few years and it works great because it's built for certain robots. When you get off the mainstream, that's where you end up having certain challenges. And then now you're on forums. You're trying to reach out to somebody in Japan who might have modified something. That happened about 2 years ago. There was one student in the world that did something that I did, and I couldn't figure it out because this was it was in a strange, not truly assembler code. So this kid was making the changes, but I was like, well, I can't actually depend on that for a commercial venture. And I got off that platform, and then I was using ROS for other projects. And this particular project made it incredibly difficult. Not on the Snapdragon, but on the x86 platform. And once we had built our small Titan fast robot operating system, we decided we're just going to stick with it because it's working incredibly well for us. But we had to build the base system that could send those messages back and forth. Really quickly, hold that thought. Sorry. I just wanted to share. How much time do we have, so Hansel? Are we down to like 30 seconds? I love that sign, by the way. 50. Okay. So I wanted to share this with everyone. It just kind of lets you get inside of our heads as we were going through, like, what can Iris look like? Not necessarily should. So we actually started looking at platforms that had been out there in the past, and we went through the pros and cons. We liked the finish on this robot. One thing we didn't like was the look. The arms, the faux shoulders, the funky head with the two big eyes. It just was really almost comical. And so we had like these really great sessions where we were throwing peanuts at the screen. That's how you show that you don't agree. And just thumbs up if you like it. Then if anybody remembers Caprica, the prequel to Battlestar Galactica, we really liked Surge. Everybody kind of felt like, oh, Surge is actually kind of cool. And I was like, hey, but we're not building a ball bot, okay? Our power budget does not account for balancing all day, trying to figure itself out. But if you can tell, there's a little bit of influence in the whole monocular kind of look there. But we really, really liked Surge. Surge was almost gentle, nice curves, and we liked the color combination that someone who arrived recently brought up. So it has that nice balance of color and a certain look. Then we saw some of these other ones, and we were just really dinging them across the board. Except for the one on the extreme right, because we liked the idea that the head and the weight could be further back. That way you could put you could carry something, because it wasn't about whether or not it looks kind of cool or what, but it's really, there's got to be a business reason, right? There's utility here, and we needed it to carry something, but we didn't want to have the marsupial look. We weren't into the whole pouch thing, right? So we're like, how do we make it carry something? So we realized that if you push back and have it lean back, but then you put the weight more forward, you end up balancing it out pretty well. And the batteries, obviously, actually are usually just skimming above the floor. We put that CG incredibly low when we started off, and I just moved the batteries on this prototype recently because I wanted much bigger batteries, because we go do a lot of demos, and it's just brutal sometimes. It's like, oh man, just swap out batteries. And some people ask, like, well, why don't you guys use like lithium iron phosphate, the LiFe stuff, or LiPo or something like that, versus the lead. Lead is cheap. I'm not worried about blowing it up, and it's heavy. I really like that. It's heavy. We need it to be heavy. If it weren't for that, we'd be putting lead in there along with LiPos. So we want the weight. We need the weight to pull it down to the ground. So gravity is our friend. So anyway, that kind of reiterates what we were talking about, the utility of tray carrying service robots. And like, we saw that picture and we're like, that is not a true use case. My dog would like go crazy. Our dog goes crazy around the house anyway, but that just wouldn't work. Our dog would just topple it over, and I'd be like, where's the robot? I see the leash and the dog. Yeah, we have a very, very funny room. And so a couple of things that I did want to share with you guys too is that in our R&D world, we look at things like EEG headsets, and we're really excited by this because there's a whole world of opportunity here with bionics type systems. There's a company called Exobionics that makes exoskeletons, and met with those guys. They're awesome, really, really passionate, really smart, and people are using like muscle twitch, muscle like your intention to pick up something. If you're an amputee, it'll work by muscle, but these have varying degrees of accuracy. Like this one is pretty binary, so it's like you're either working hard on something or you're calm, and those are the two states, and it's hard to get in between them. Whereas this one, which costs about 3 times as much, is incredibly sensitive. So this one picks up all sorts of different signals, and if you're fairly decently disciplined or trained, neither of which I am, you can actually do some great work with this. The API for this is much richer. Unfortunately, it's very binary. The API for this, I call up the company all the time, like, give me something else. This API is really rough, but it is a fantastic product. So we're connecting these to linear actuators. So we've got linear actuators that are pushing hundreds and hundreds of pounds. And one of our side projects, because you got to have a side project. Oh my God, what's life without side projects? Is actually exoskeletons. So we're just meeting up with people who give us really neat ideas, and we connect these guys to like the Edison platform, because the Edison has a built-in Wi-Fi, has a built-in Bluetooth Low Energy. The whole processor, I mean, the whole thing is this big. If you want to put a small, if you want to mate up to it, you can use that. It is so incredibly efficient. But again, it has its built-in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, so we connect that to other devices like it's kind of like an encoder. Basically, it is. So when you're pushing or pulling on the actuators, you actually get that information. So it's kind of like getting odometry data, but you're actually getting that linear data. So you know that it's at the end of its extension, and it's amazing what you can do with this. So even the binary one, because you can keep pushing until the system says I can't push anymore. It gives you a little buzzer. Whereas this one, you can actually get more smooth, and you can just say ride along and stop. So we're doing some really neat stuff, and ultimately there are like roadmaps to like where is this going, right? Is we're doing it just to do it, but we really want to work in the space of folks who are handicapped. That's a passion of mine. I love to deliver a product in that space, and depending on how certain funding opportunities go, we don't have to make a whole lot of money on it, or we can just turn it and make it open source. We're huge proponents of open source, so at some point we'll be feeding back physical designs into that space too. So any other questions? This has been a lot of fun, by the way. I'm really happy to share our passions, our beginnings, our challenges. It's a daily exercise in patience and perseverance, but it is fun. I wouldn't want to do anything else. Doug, did you have a question?
Yeah, have you considered any kind of a telepresence approach?
So there are telepresence systems out there, and I'm completely against doing a telepresence system, primarily because you can hang something on here. I mean, we could design very easily a platform, and then you can snap in a 10-inch tablet and Skype your way across, right? So we don't really have to make the telepresence platform, and because, for instance, like since I turned off all of the automation stuff because we just ported this stuff across, like we have you can control, so you can actually control it over the internet if I gave you the firewall access, and with your tablet on there, right? All of a sudden, and with this interface, I mean, I can just put the streaming video on here too, and all of a sudden you're like, ooh, look, my camera. And so it's really I don't think it's a sustainable model to offer telepresence. I mean, it's just Jeff's view on this, but because I have people walking around, they look at companies like the Beam robots, and Scott Hassan does not like them to be called robots. So the Beam platform, I listen. I mean, a lot of my time is spent listening to people, and people say, well, why would I pay $16,000 for that when I can just ask a guy to grab his phone and jump on one of the 30 different services that I can jump on, or the 2 or 3 major ones. And it's a good point, because you're talking about pretty significant investment at $16,000 a robot. And I think the novelty is starting to cool down. I could be wrong, but for me, I absolutely couldn't see investing in that one-hit kind of solution. That's why we work really, really hard to make a more flexible solution that has a lot of utility. And people like it. I mean, people are telling us, you need to be in other fields. And the reason I'm really careful about that is because the first time I pitch to investors, so anybody who's building stuff, right, and you want to go pitch, our solution fits in a lot of different markets. And when I told the investors that, they looked at me and said, you got to pick one. I said, well, I can give you 4 right now. So I'm not interested in 4. I'm interested in 1. And I felt like saying, well, I'm telling you this word, but I'm like, I want your money. So, well, here's why we're good in 4. And after the event, the after party and everything, they selected the winners. And one of the judges came to me, a senior guy, and he's like, you blew it. You should have picked 1 out of the bunch. You were our top choice. Because when I opened up the presentation, I opened up with, we build from the bottom up. We're all about security. We have a secure platform that ties into IoT. And they were like, love that. We know you. We know you and your team. You guys are great. You don't have a target market. So, I would say we bombed on that because they came back and said, you guys were awesome. If you had that one market, you'd have been in the Bay Area in our incubator. So we're giving it another shot. And they love it now because they're like, wow, you guys are hitting hospitality. Yes, we are. And they love it. They love everybody we've been talking to. They're getting feedback from people, and they're like, everywhere we turn around, NXT Robotics is there. It's like, yeah. Yesterday I was in Rancho Bernardo at Chaparral Elementary School, using Iris, and I didn't have all the automation. It wasn't running autonomous. I was using this, and the kids were pretty excited. I had it, I had like the audio going, and I had her explain to the kids, what she does, and they loved it.
I can be configured for social interaction as you see me or with high or low tabletop adapters for added utility.
So, and that's one of the
I can also
options.
be reconfigured by software to specialize in other tasks besides concierge or delivery services. For instance, I can also roam the property in security mode.
So yeah, when I wouldn't mind in Hansel, if you wouldn't mind. I mean, I'd love to come back and show some more of what we have. We're having a great time developing this platform, but we also have some other really exciting side projects. But they truly are side projects because this is our core focus. So let's see, more questions?
Could you just say a little more about that crowdfunding? What that's for a consumer version?
Is
it Kickstarter or some other?
So it's going to either be Indiegogo or Kickstarter. We're not sure yet. I'm leaving that up to our guy over there who's really good at this stuff. And it's not, we're definitely speaking to the VCs. We're looking at the various incubation opportunities. Qualcomm has a robotics incubator. We'll apply for that as well. It's a no-brainer. We use Snapdragon. As of Monday, we use Snapdragon, and it's organic to us. So why would we not even just apply? I think it wouldn't, even if there were because they're going to pick 10 companies. So if there were 10 other really, really hot companies that just blew us out of the water, it still shows interest and that we're serious about what we're doing. So we're not just doing it to go through the motions. We would love to be incubated by Qualcomm, but at the very least, we're going to show them what we've got. I did meet with the executive director, Ryan Cooter, from Qualcomm incubation system or program. And when I met with him, his first question was, his first statement was, wait a minute, you said you have a robot? Yeah. Well, you can't come out here without a robot. I'm like, oh, okay. Because it was really a hey, can you meet with us just so we can tell you about the incubation program? We'd love for you to apply. You're one of the San Diego robotics companies. And I showed up, and he's like, oh, robot? He was so broken-hearted. This is crazy. So, but this is a great community. We're really enjoying ourselves, and I hope the San Diego robotic community and ecosystem just continues to flourish and get richer, because we need people, too. I know my schedule. That's why I think I was mentioning I was huffing when I was coming up here. The reason why is because when I put Iris in the car, I had made sure everything was tested and set up. I'm like, okay, we're ready for our demo. And I was putting it in the car, and I have the switches on the bottom. So of course, Murphy's Law says you have to hit the switches with your finger when you're picking it up. So sure enough, I'm putting it in the car, and it's like poof. And I'm like, oh. And anybody knows, right? If you kill a Linux system while it's running, if it happens to be doing something really important at the time, you could actually damage the file system, and it will not come up in a full running mode. It'll go down to a reduced mode. So I was like, oh boy, when I turn it back on, it better talk to me. So love that. All right, any other questions? I think I saw a few more hands.
Hey, so you're gonna end up using the B-stem for vision?
Yeah.
Using disparity?
I'm sorry?
Using disparity?
When you say using disparity?
It's the two cameras.
Oh, the stereoscopic vision.
Yeah.
We're going to use them. We're not using them right now. We just moved over, as I mentioned. But I have tested them, and they were fantastic. Their demos are great. They've got C demos in C and demos in Python, and I mean the Python demos are even fast. The object tracking is very, very fast.
Oh, I guess I didn't get that far in it. I used it for disparity. It really didn't seem that well polished.
Really?
Yeah, it was really affected by light, high light conditions.
You're always going to find that with cameras.
Yeah.
It's a tough problem.
Yeah, I mean, all we were doing. So all we were doing was basically just can you recognize an object? Can you track it? And we were getting that really, really well and very fast. And that was one of the problems we were running into with
on the ARM version.
On the ARM version, yeah. So have you just tried that? Because they have like a small series of demos, and we ran through them all. And
I haven't tried object tracking, but I've tried disparity. But it didn't work that well.
So one of the things that we are going to try is I forgot what it stands for, but basically HOG, and we really wanted to follow people incredibly well. There are other companies out there that put little robots out that, like one of them, you have to have an infrared beacon that you're holding in your hand, and you have to walk with it. And if it loses the side of the beacon, it kind of I don't know where I am. But they say, well, you can clip it on your belt. And I'm just like, no. If you lose the beacon, what do? You carry your robot around. You just not. And your robot's got stuff in it, right? Because it's got a little basket, so you have like 10, 20 pounds of stuff. And then if you lose your beacon or whatever, you have some visual tracking problem. Then you're kind of out of luck. And we're really trying to get a pretty smooth way to recognize you, but it also has to, when you turn around, recognize that you're you from behind, and then continue to follow you. So we're hoping that this gets us there. And we know Qualcomm is committed to being a big player in the robotics space, and that's one reason why we decided, okay, let's go ahead and port over to the Snapdragon. I'm trying to remember the CTO's name. Qualcomm. I met him a few months ago, and I asked him about their long-term goals and vision on robotics, and he is absolutely just, the guy is just like, I will pound this into reality. This is going to work. So he's really committed, and Qualcomm is really driving that. And I've spoken to Intel quite a bit about the platform we were using with theirs, and I just didn't get that same level of commitment. I was told to go to the forums when we're having massive interrupt problems and GPIO latency issues, and they just kept saying go back to the forum. And I said, listen, guys, you're telling me I can share a booth with you at trade shows and we can bring our solution out there, but you're telling me to go to the forums when I'm stuck. I'm really getting frustrated. And it got to the point where I said, I'm tired. We've worked really, really hard. We can't get lost in the pylon, that platform. We're having massive latency issues. When the robot's supposed to turn 15 degrees, there were times it did 2 full circles. Well, I can't do anything with that. So we improvised, and we did a lot of extra processing to compensate for that horrific. But the power budget was so low. And finally, I just said, you know what? This platform is like a 2-watt platform. Let's give it a shot and see what happens. And 3 hours later, we're using it, and it's been working out.
So you're switching. So you've already switched the vStem then.
We have, but I mean, we have our original system, so we can always roll back. But right now, we're really liking the vStem because it also incorporates a lot of what we want on the platform. Because we also need some PWM capabilities.
Yeah, it has that built in already.
Yeah. And we don't really need the motor control stuff, so we have like 3 add-on cards.
Yeah.
The R cord, add cord or A cord or whatever.
Yeah.
So they have all that. We really do like some PWM, we really like all the GPIOs.
Yeah.
And the IMU that they have on board, we've written a lot of code for. So when I looked at the actual IMU that they have, it is identical to the one that we're using on our system.
I didn't know they had an
I'm sorry?
I didn't know they had an IM.
Yeah. So it's an LG 3E something, I can't remember.
Are you planning to put ROS on?
No, because we have gone down the road with our own robotic distributed operating system, and it's running great. So, like for instance, when I'm debugging it from my tablet, I can just send over a certificate, and once it's accepted, I actually subscribe to whatever I want to, just check, and then I can see all the traffic, and it helps me debug really well, especially like when I'm doing the voice things, and it's not processing a command well, so I have to rebuild like the vocabulary. And I really hate that. I hate building dictionaries. I don't like doing all the voice stuff. So we're talking to different companies now. One of them Sensory, and they're a pretty big player in the speech recognition space because I want to get out of that. We're a robotics company. We're not a speech recognition company. There are truly speech recognition companies, and we're trying to just go and get people who do good things. Like Iris's voice is provided by a Polish company. Everything she does is dynamic, so it's not like some woman is sitting there speaking, right? It's actually on the fly, generating this really nice sounding voice, and people really like it. But we didn't want to have to go and do that ourselves, so we're trying to do the same thing with Sensory. And that reminds me, I was supposed to have a call with them today, but I just couldn't get to it. So I think we're at time, or a little bit over, but I hope you guys got something out of this. I had a great time. And if you have more questions, I had cards. I kind of blew through them today. I've been running all over the place. But Hansel knows me. He's got my email address. I'm in the group's gathering list, so you can find me there too.
I also posted your contact slide on our
Yeah.
meetup now, so if you just go through the photo, there's the email address on there.
Excellent. All right. Thanks. So and we're always open to working with people. I've actually made that decision recently because we were kind of closed and we were working in stealth mode for quite some time while we developed our own OS or our own distributed system and designing Iris, and we were just rushing very quickly. But it's come to a point now where we have a lot on our plates, and there are a total of 6 of us. 2 of those 6 are advisory board members, so it's really more like 4 people who are driving this really, really hard. And I can tell you, we're like this every day. So that was my hustle. When I went to pick up Jody, I'm like, I'm 7 minutes away. I was supposed to be there 10 minutes ago. So anyway, that's our world, and we wouldn't want to be anywhere else. All right, thanks everyone.
Yeah.
What a good group. I'm glad to be at the meeting.